Hi folks, and welcome to the first episode of Monkey of Mist Reviews. The game being reviewed today is Clockwork, which is a 2D platform puzzle game which also relies on time manipulation. So because I haven't actually done game reviews on my channel before, I'm gonna just take a quick moment here to tell you how I'm breaking down the game into its core elements. A lot of people have lots of different impressions of what makes a good game. To me, it's got to be things like the visuals, the audio, gameplay. Storyline is a main feature for me that I find as essential to be a good game. Don't get me wrong, some games don't have a storyline at all, kind of sandbox games, which I still enjoy, but it's more on the lines of you make your own storyline. But yeah, that's about different games. So I'm going to touch on these all individually. I'm going to try keeping everything separate so you can understand why I would come up with the final score for this game. So I'm just going to jump straight in and get into visuals of the game here. The detail that's been put in is actually very impressive. I mean, if you look at the foreground blocks, the details that are in each of the character models, the actual switches, the doors panels, the elevators, things like that, they're actually really well put together. The fact that the character models work really well as they are animated into the movements, it really helps to immerse the player into the steampunk aesthetic that's been played out on screen. There is only a few flaws that I would come to with the fact that sometimes when you're pulling yourself up onto blocks or other small animations, they don't tend to work all the time. For example, I found a lot of the time I was pulling myself up onto a ledge, and the character would just be as if they were standing there, and it would hover up the side of the block and onto the top. It's not necessarily a bad thing in the sense that a lot of games have small glitches like this. It did, however, happen quite a few times, which kind of gave me the impression that it was something that I was doing or something that wasn't quite being considered in the testing phase that was maybe just missed. I'm not too sure if it was just something on my end or if it was something that was generally completely overlooked in the actual building of the game. The audio, the audio is actually really good. The sounds, the audio, the orchestra in the background as the game gets into the boss fights. It's not necessarily the best that not having any voice actors for the actual characters. I would have liked to hear some voices, maybe based on like a kind of robotic sound. Maybe get Daft Punk in to do the sounds for them. I don't know, but just something to give it a little bit more of a way to a way to actually bond with the character you're playing, because a lot of the time I found that because they weren't speaking, or well, they were speaking but not something I could actually comprehend, I kind of didn't really care about the characters by the end of the game. It was more on the lines of let them die, I don't care, I don't know, let them fall off the edge, I don't care, kind of thing. Whereas if I think that the voice acting, it could have maybe drawn the player in a little bit more and given a little bit more emotion to the characters that you're playing. Now the gameplay, unfortunately I had a lot of issues with. It didn't seem to give me many issues until further on in the game. By the third area, the final area, the game was starting to feel a little bit more clunky, like things were not working properly. I was finding that boxes were glitching on a lot of the mechanisms of the game that shouldn't be glitching. For example, in one of the levels, I found that I was pushing a block off an edge, and the box was just hovering instead of actually falling. And if I was to just let the box get pushed by one of the mechanisms that was there in the game, it would just slide off the edge, but it would land on a sheer face of the wall, not allowing it to drop down to the floor completely and getting pushed along to the next area like it would need to be able to finish the game. So unfortunately that really hindered the progress in the game. It was very irritating, and it did cause me to feel like I didn't want to play the game anymore after that point. I had to come up with ways to glitch the game to continue to be able to progress, and sometimes I was even just running through the game, nothing really, not really doing anything to glitch the game, and I was just getting a key given to me for no apparent reason whatsoever. I wasn't picking it up, it wasn't anywhere near me, and I wouldn't be able to open the door with that key. So it would have to be the constant restarting of the level to be able to continue to play, which really held up the gameplay, as well as giving me that kind of irritation of not being able to play it how it should be played. I'm hoping that the actual developers has maybe encountered this problem and are working to fix it, but unfortunately I couldn't really say that it was something that I would want to play again. Don't get me wrong, the game is fun and does have good puzzles. I just found myself by the end of the game getting really irritated with some of these glitches. Now the storyline was a bit of an issue with me as well. I felt like that because we weren't really getting the emotion of the characters, it was kind of just like, oh, you're going to betray me. Oh yes, I betrayed you. Oh dear, kind of thing. It didn't feel like it really drags you in enough, and because of the story being told by different characters, rather than going, this is how it goes, this is how it happens, and here's the actual footage of it happening. It's more in the lines of, oh look, here's another character who's going to tell me some of the backstory which led up to this point, or what's going to be happening now, etc, etc. And because of that, it didn't really feel like I was really wanting to pay attention to the storyline. I did listen to it, I did read through all of it, I did make sure I knew what was happening, and I also felt like it didn't really tie up a lot of the ends that it should have. It kind of felt like it was leading into maybe a second game, but because of the fact that the gameplay not being as brilliant as I would expected it to be by the end of the game, it's not really going to be drawing me in enough to want to play the next game, especially with the storyline how it ends, without releasing any spoilers on the game for those who are still playing it or going to be playing it. It's something that you probably feel a bit disappointed about yourself when it actually happens. It's not got much of a replay factor, unfortunately, and because of that, it's kind of reduced the overall score that I would be giving the game. I do understand that this game is made by an indie developer, which is probably quite new to the game development world, and because of, I feel like the game hasn't quite met the standards that I would be expecting of like a company that's been making lots of games. However, it's still a good game for a starting game. I mean, not everybody can just rattle off AAA titles straight out of university or college, or even just sitting down and learning themselves. This is something that takes practice, it takes knowledge of what you've done before, and because of that, I think this is a good start. Definitely a good start for what is still to come from this company. I don't want this game to be kind of looked over and went, well, this game was not as good as what it could have been, and therefore all the other games from this company will be the same. I think with the amount of effort that they've put into making this game, it does look like they are wanting to make a decent game, wanting to make a game which can draw you in as a player and make you want to play more. With this one, however, we did fall a little bit short. It's not necessarily the developer's fault, I'd say. I'd say it's more on the fact of experience. And if they have the more experience that they will be using from this game, for the later games that they'll be making, I'd really hope to see something coming from the studio which could actually rival a lot of the newer games. So overall, I would probably rate this game a 6 out of 10. Visually, great game. Audio is good as well. Obviously some slight difficulties with certain parts of the game. Not something that would necessarily stop you from playing the game. I mean, it did take me a long time to kind of figure out ways of pushing past these different boundaries. Some things that I'm not sure everybody would think about doing themselves, which could be an issue, but if the company was able to maybe release a patch for those issues, then it would be a massive help for the actual fan base that it would be getting. So basically, I think the game was okay. It wasn't amazing, unfortunately, but it was more on the lines of the glitches that were causing me to feel infuriated with having to restart the levels constantly. Something like a patch from the developers would be really much appreciated from all gamers who are having this error. Other than that, I can't wait until I see the next game that this developer comes out with, because they put a lot of effort into the game themselves. You can see that in the way the game plays. So if you like this video, please do hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and leave a comment below if you've got any games that you'd want to see, or if you have any points about the game that I maybe missed within this review, if you've played it yourself and want to maybe say something about it. Also stay tuned for the new reviews that I'll be coming out with soon. I can't say unfortunately when they will be, as I'm currently studying at the moment and time is unfortunately not on my side. So thanks for watching everybody, and please stay tuned for the next videos that I'll be coming out with.